Today I will tell you about a very interesting psychological horror film from 2022 called Don't Worry Darling. My name is Alex and welcome to my channel. The 1950s, the 20th century. Alice and Jack live in a typical American town. They meet with friends, have fun, drive a car, and love each other. One day, Alice prepares for a party with friends while her husband goes to work with many other white-collar workers. A female voice narrates that today is day 997, all employees are on their way to headquarters, all residents are safe and have been accounted for. The ladies wish a good day, and Alice starts her household chores. Then she goes to dance classes, like all the exemplary wives in this town. The leader, Shelley, reminds them that beauty is in control and grace is in symmetry. After the classes, Alice returns home, chats with her neighbor Bunny, who constantly scolds her children, and goes to take down the dried laundry. A catchy tune constantly plays in Alice's head, and she hums it. Suddenly, she notices another neighbor, Margaret, standing in front of her house, not paying attention to her surroundings. Alice starts preparing, but one egg raises her suspicions. She squeezes it in her hand, and the egg turns out to be empty. The woman crushes the rest, but there is nothing under the shell. This activity is interrupted by the smell of burnt meat. In the evening, she meets her husband, beautifully dressed and groomed, at the set table. However, the husband decides to start with a more pleasant activity. The next day, the woman relaxes by the pool. Alice gets distracted, the song plays in her head again, causing her concern. Then a visual sequence appears, a circle of women in wigs. Later, Alice approaches the model of the town and mindlessly traces her finger along the streets. When she goes beyond the boundaries of the settlement, she is picked up by a banner saying it's time to drink cocktails, which her children treat her to. Meanwhile, the men talk, distracting, everything is decent, sunny, and calm. A signal sounds, and Shelley greets the new residents. She is happy that the couple can learn from her husband, Frank, who created something extraordinary, a new world. Margaret interrupts the woman's speech, saying that she and her husband should not be here. The woman's husband quickly leads her away, and Frank apologizes to the guests. The couple is going through a difficult period. Their task is to follow their dream and resist chaos, the main enemy of progress, and they are changing the world. The guests echo Frank's words, "Everyone here is happy, they are all one family." The man thanks John for supporting the husbands, they are their support. The fun continues. Alice goes to look for Jack but finds Margaret, who says she has nightmares and cannot be here. Margaret's husband pulls the curtain in front of Alice. The woman finds her husband in the house. Jack kisses her, and the couple is alone, but at the most intense moment, Alice sees Frank smiling and watching their lovemaking. Later, the women gather in the shopping center and discuss their ideal life and poor Margaret. Alice feels sorry for her neighbor, although she does not blame her for the troubles, as she led her son into the desert, where she was found without the child. The conversation turns to the men's activities. No one knows for sure, but they say they are making weapons. Bunny interrupts, saying it's not their business, women also have work to do, creating comfort. At night, Alice has a nightmare, but in the morning, she sends her husband off to work as usual and starts her household chores. Then she goes for a ride. She stays alone on the trolley bus and says she just wants to go for a ride. Suddenly, the woman sees a plane flying towards the mountains and crashing there. Alice screams at the driver, but he does not understand what she wants. The woman urges him to help the victims, but he drives the route and cannot turn off. Alice jumps out of the trolley bus and runs towards the mountains. She walks for a long time through the desert, then comes to a road and climbs it to a high mountain. She approaches and stops at a mirrored glass. There is no one around, only her reflection. Alice puts her hands on the glass and loses consciousness in the darkness. A circle of dancing women appears, and a male voice calls for order, saying people should allow themselves to know what life should be like. The next moment, Alice finds herself on her bed. Going to the kitchen, she sees Jack preparing dinner. The dishes are in disarray, many products are spoiled. Alice does not understand what is happening, and her husband explains that when he came home from work, she was already asleep, and she returned home on the trolley bus. The woman does not understand. The driver returned for her, but now Jack looks at his wife in confusion. Alice decides she saw it all in a dream. The next morning, everything goes as usual. Alice sees her husband off and starts cleaning the window glass, but suddenly it seems to start moving, pressing her against the wall, and the woman chokes. The next moment, the phone rings, and Alice is completely free. Margaret's voice on the phone urges her to get out of there because she is there and saw everything herself. Alice sees the dancing women again, but now it is herself and her friends. Suddenly, instead of her reflection, Margaret appears, approaching the mirror from the other side and starting to bang her head against the surface. Alice screams and comes to her senses. She runs home and sees Margaret on the roof of her house. Turning to Alice, the woman cuts her own throat and falls down. Alice screams in horror, and the arriving servants pick her up and take Margaret's body away. In the evening, she tries to explain to Jack, but he does not believe his wife. Margaret is in the hospital. She accidentally cut herself while washing windows. Alice feels guilty because the neighbor asked for help. She asks what he does in the project, but he cannot talk about it. He asks her to stop the hysterics that could ruin everything. At night, Alice watches the advertisement for their town and realizes she is struggling in a pool from which she cannot escape. In the morning, she prepares and suddenly starts wrapping her head in plastic wrap, as if trying to bring herself to her senses, but suffocation does not help. She tears off the wrap. The arriving doctor assures the woman that it is just nervous overstrain because Alice witnessed Margaret's fall. The woman insists that the neighbor cut her own throat. The doctor offers to prescribe her pills, but Jack refuses. They will manage. The doctor assures them that Margaret will soon recover and return home. He leaves, forgetting his briefcase, from which Alice manages to pull out a folder with Margaret's personal file, but all the text is smudged, and nothing can be read. Alice burns the folder. She drinks alcohol and sees the dancing women again, then finds herself in the bathroom. Jack is unhappy, they are late, and he brings her a dress, then asks Alice to think about having a child. Tonight, they have a wonderful evening ahead. The couple arrives at the restaurant where all the town's residents have gathered. A show is presented for those present, chic blondes, and Alice sees the circle again and Margaret killing herself. The woman feels unwell, but those around do not notice. Frank gives a speech and invites Jack onto the stage. He is ready to congratulate the man because now he is entering the highest expert council and presents Jack with a ring of loyalty. The audience applauds, and Jack dances a dance of gratitude. Alice cannot bear to watch this and runs to the bathroom. A vision of another Jack, who lost his job, flashes before her. Bunny finds her, confused. Alice tries to explain something, but her friend interrupts her. Alice was in the headquarters. She went crazy, behaving like a spoiled child. Her job is to support her husband. She is ruining his career and now behaving like Margaret. Returning to the hall, Alice watches Jack's triumph and restrains herself. In the morning, Jack reminds her that they will have guests in the evening to express their gratitude to Frank. Alice greets the arrivals with a smile on her face. Everything is as usual, perfect. The husband greets Frank while Alice finishes cutting the appetizers. The man goes into the kitchen and suddenly starts talking to the hostess. He is sorry that Bunny did not help, but after all, she did not believe Margaret. He has been waiting for a long time for someone to challenge him. The guests sit down at the table. Alice demonstratively sits in the host's seat, and Jack obediently sits down next to her. A conversation about nothing begins. Suddenly, Alice asks why all the women in the town are from one or at most two states, and everyone goes on vacation to the same places. Jack tries to change the subject, but Alice continues. They all met their husbands under the same circumstances on the train. The whole story is the same because they are told what to remember, but sometimes they suddenly remember the forbidden. Frank does something to everyone. The man reminds her of her nervous shock, asking why she is not being treated and why she was in the headquarters. Jack is horrified. She was in the headquarters. Frank continues, she violated the rules, it is the result of psychosis, but she opened up to him in his bedroom. Alice freezes from such a terrible lie, but Jack believes Frank unquestioningly. The woman tries to appeal to the guests' common sense, asking where these products come from and what is in them. Then Shelley stands up. She will no longer allow her husband to be insulted. The guests leave. Frank is disappointed, he expected something more interesting from her. Jack, having seen everyone off, returns to the house. Alice tries to convey to him that her husband is the most precious person to her and asks to leave from here, anywhere, but together. Jack agrees. They leave the house and get into the car, and then the husband changes. Before his wife's eyes, and in the next moment, the servants pull the woman out of the car and take her away into the darkness. Alice finds herself on the operating table. Visions with her husband flash before her, and a doctor in a mask lean over her, whom she recognizes as herself. The next moment, Dr. Alice finishes the operation and goes home, where her unemployed husband meets her. He did not prepare dinner because he did not know what she wanted. There is no hot water either. Alice is very tired. She stood at the operating table for 30 hours, so she refuses her husband intimacy. He sits at the monitors and listens to the advertisement for the new simulation. And again, a sunny morning in the paradisiacal town. Alice returns to her surroundings. Her enthusiastic bunny greets her and tells her the latest news. Alice hugs her children and does not notice her friend's worried look. Her husband leaves for work. Alice does her household chores, dances, swims, and meets her husband. She takes the roast out of the oven, and Jack chooses a record, humming a tune. Hearing it, Alice seems to wake up. Jack walks through the dark city, goes into his apartment, and parallelly, his physical characteristics are heard. He is absolutely fit for the project. Victoria, with her friend Alice, takes on the task of maintaining the vital functions of her spouse's body. Alice sees herself in bed, fixed and entangled in wires. Jack takes care of her body because he is obliged to leave the simulation every day and work to have the opportunity to pay for her. The man lies down next to her and hums the tune that Alice hears now. She realizes that he deprived her of real life. The man did this to save her from constant work. Frank created this world so that they could live as they wanted. He works like a madman for this. But she is happy. But what about the others? Does that mean they are really hostages? Jack hugs her, but Alice hits him on the head. The next moment, Bunny finds her. Jack is dead, and Frank is immediately informed about this. Bunny confesses that she knows everything about the simulation. She herself chose this life because here she can be with her children who are alive. But the other women do not know anything. Alice must run, or they will kill her. The woman goes out into the yard, gets into Jack's car, and drives into the desert. Pursuers rush after her, but Alice, making a maneuver, causes a collision in which the doctor dies. More pursuers rush after her car. Frank is informed about what happened. He orders to detain the woman at all costs, and in the next moment, Shelley stabs him with a knife. He is a fool and has ruined everything. Alice rushes towards the mountain, but not far from the top, the car stalls. She runs further on foot. The servants pursue her, and there is a dome ahead. The woman approaches it when her pursuers are already a step away from her, and suddenly she feels hands on her shoulders. Her husband asks her not to leave her. Shelley reaches out, a blow, darkness, views of an ideal life in victory, and a sigh awakening in reality. That case when it is difficult to take someone's side. The husband deprived his wife of reality with good intentions to make her happy, and probably many would want to escape into the simulation from everyday problems, but can a person be made happy by force?